Ready?
Yep.
Are we online? Okay, well, this is Mark A. Bell, and I think, the chair of the Grants and Data Subcommittee, and we are having our monthly meeting, and we are going to call the meeting to order right now. So Athens in motion. And Jake circulated an agenda, and let's see, pull that up. And first on the agenda after the call to order is discussing the America Walks grant opportunity. That is a grant proposal due May 31st for one of these rapid flashing beacons that could make a crosswalk safer and encourage walking. I think they have fairly specific criteria. I was just looking at the application, and the application itself doesn't look terribly burdensome, although we do have to think about how we monitor the impact of the project. And I guess I'm looking to staff for that kind of input, and also how we can coordinate between, either leisure services or transportation public works or whoever needs to get involved with this. We're happy to be supportive, and I'm happy to do whatever needs to be done in terms of helping to write the grant. But I don't know, Daniel or I don't think we've met. Alex, maybe we've met, but I don't know if you want to jump in. And
Yeah, Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, Alex Bond, Leisure Services. Daniel was kind enough to invite me over for this talk. There are a couple locations that we've already identified where this grant would probably fit. There's a little bit more of a backstory. You want me to go into that, Daniel, at all? Or okay. So for us, we put forward a CDBG application that had 4 sub-projects to it, and that grant has been, we've been awarded, but about 50% what we put in. Had a meeting with
what is CDBG? I'm sorry, it's an FLA.
Community develop. That's okay. I'm sorry. Community Development Block Grant.
Okay.
So it's a great thing to be awarded. It really is. It's through our HCD office. Help me out, somebody. Housing Community Development.
Housing Community Development.
Am I right?
Yep.
Excellent. Too many acronyms. I'm so sorry. But we were awarded partial. So we talked with that office about what that would look like as far as priority, with the 50% or roughly 50% award, if they were dictating priority or not. So we get to kind of lead that a little bit. The 2 places we are looking for RFBs, one is at Little Oak Street off of the Firefly Trail, right where Bernie Street, I can't remember which one it is, but Bernie comes in right there. It's one of those places where the community has kind of presented a need. There's a social trail there. There's really no connectivity. You can either get on at the racetrack gas station, or you can get on at the other road right by Rowland Chemical. But right there, that mid block, there's a big social trail. A lot of people want it. A lot of people reach out to commissioners and asked about it. So that's one of the sub projects which had the RFP in it. There's also already been Tim Griffith has already sent over results, and it seems like it would fit. Putting one in there would fit with that.
Could you explain a little bit more? So I just found where Little Oak Street is. It parallels the Firefly Trail. Are we talking about where it crosses Old Winterville Road?
So it is. Daniel, do I have permission to share? Okay, you got it. I was going to bring up the application, but you got it.
All right. So I believe you're talking
Bernie Street right there.
So see if I can access the aerial imagery.
Yeah, so this is right around the corner for me. So we're talking about putting in an RFB and access to the trail here?
That's right. That's right. Daniel, if that doesn't work, I've got the application with photos in it. I can also show.
Yeah, go ahead and share what you've got as your locations.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm very familiar with that informal trail and agree that would be a great place to provide access. Go ahead if you want to continue.
Okay. So right now you guys should be seeing a PDF. So in the 4 sub projects, this was number 3. That's what that 3 is about at the top there. But yeah, so this was identified as a social trail. including connection. When Daniel was with us as a park planner, he and Todd both kind of identified a little bit of a better connection a little further up the street, but it would include putting an RFB or so. Tim and I talked a little bit about it may not be a real crosswalk. It may be more of a flashing when people are flushing in, flushing out. There's some flexibility there, but having the RFB I think is necessary, because if you come over this hill, we're going to want some signaling that people will be crossing there. And this is, our back is towards the racetrack gas station right now in this photo.
Because I was wondering, it just doesn't seem like it gets very much traffic. I mean, it's not a high, thoroughfare, but maybe I'm wrong. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it's more the sight lines that are the issue.
It's the sight lines, and there are enough people using that area. Again, the traffic study has already been turned in, and it seemed appropriate per that traffic study. So
okay.
So that, and I think a lot of people are using that just by, you can even with Felice just coming off, which is when that photo was taken. I'm sorry, let me zoom in more. There you go. You can see that social trail, and it is getting used a fair amount.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of our RFB locations, and the other one is right here. So this is again, we call this one sub-project 2, but since it's partial funded, we kind of decide where it fits best. But dare I say this was the first on-demand flashing light over crosswalk in Clarke County. I don't know that for sure, but I think it would be. This is from 02, 03 when they built the Firefly, or the Greenway Trail, sorry, right by the Charm Building. So what we have there currently is still a over lane flashing light, very slow flashing, incandescent flashing. And I am not as familiar as you guys are with this kind of stuff, but even I have found research that proves that these are very ineffective for today's society, where people are looking at phones and looking down. And so the RFBs here to make that Greenway trail safer right there on College. That's another place we're looking for the RFBs.
Yeah. So with the newest section of Greenway just kind of behind, we're looking toward it, that runs up to North Avenue. It seems like, has there been a lot less? I used to ride that all the time, but I have not ridden that route in well over a year since that opened, because it just was not a natural. Why hop up and go over and go down and come back when you have this nice, beautiful new stretch of Greenway? Does it still support the number of users that it used to?
I wouldn't say as it used to. We don't have data going back that far. Plenty of people still use it. Plenty of people still use this to access the Greenway, to make it down to the Greenway in the river corridor, the Greenway corridor part of the trail, which is what you're talking about. Not to mention, this is also part of the entire network. Once we get more trails going towards Normaltown, once we get more trails kind of coming up in this area more, we are not knocking it off as part of the Greenway Trail. It is still part of the Greenway Trail.
So, as the Firefly extends out and crosses Old Winterville, I mean, I ride up to there quite a bit, and it strikes me that that's a crossing where there's relatively high-speed traffic with a little bit of a downhill coming toward Lexington. Is that a place you also considered?
So for grant opportunities, we mainly wanted to look at unfunded, especially current infrastructure. With anything that's currently being built, we're looking for that to be purchased by the project. So in Winterville, where we built Firefly Trail, the 4 sets, 8 total RFBs that were installed were all paid for by the Firefly project, the T-SPLOS project. So we would, just like Firefly 2 crosses Winterville Road, Spring Valley Road, the SPLOS project's already purchased the new heads that have countdown timers in them, where they weren't there before. So anything new would be part of the new project. That's why for grant opportunities, we mainly look at existing infrastructure.
Okay. That
Yeah,
makes
Mark,
sense.
that's a great question. That's something we can figure out. I have a T-SPLOS meeting coming up, so I can ask to look at that project.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It pretty much Firefly, there will be right there at Old Winterville, there will be RFBs, confirmed. There will be some there at that crosswalk
Great.
from
Mhm.
the end of the existing trail to the new one.
Good.
Any crossing will be signalized, hopefully with a crosswalk. If not, it'll be RFBs.
Mhm. Okay.
It's
That's
wonderful.
great. Yeah. In terms of the only other spot in terms of existing trails would be where it crosses Inglewood Avenue, just a little bit sort of northwest of where the original one we discussed, because there's a crossing there. The sight lines aren't great from the Firefly Trail. I've only had to stop once in about 50 times, so I don't know how big a priority that is. There's not a lot of traffic, so.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because that's my street. And for some reason, our delivery drivers, they're trying to make their deliveries fast. People are flying in over that hill both ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean,
That's one we
maybe
hadn't
that's,
considered. So thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's an existing crosswalk that's not, signalized in any way, and it does see heavy pedestrian traffic for sure. I mean, that's, everyone on that Firefly will cross there. So anyway, that would be one to consider.
Okay.
Personally, I might find that a little bit higher priority than the College Avenue. But just in terms of current utilization, that doesn't mean that as it gets built out near College Avenue, we wouldn't consider that later or next year or some other time.
So I just want to run through the criteria the sort of review criteria that they're looking for, because I think that both of the ones, so the hesitation I would have with Inglewood is that it dead ends, right? So it's not, in terms of having to show that on an application, I would be looking at that and saying, how much traffic could there really be on a dead end street? But either of them, I think.
Remember another issue with this area is Little Oak Street comes out here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if you look at the map, it's one of the only ways in. It's the only way in off Lexington or off Oak Street into that entire neighborhood complex back there.
So I think that either of those is a better fit for this opportunity than the College Station one, and because the criteria are, one, it is in response to demonstrated community need. So if it has broad and diverse community support is number two, based on intentional foundation of equity and authentic engagement of the whole community. So if it is something that people are clamoring for in those communities, then that is a really good thing to be able to say in the application. It demonstrates a culture of inclusive design. It will enhance safety and lead to increased physical activity, which I really like I really like the visual of the social trail that already exists as being
people
evidence.
are voting with their feet. They're voting with their feet, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And the connections of the Firefly Trail, which is one of our premier locations for physical activity. So although I guess there's less physical activity if you don't have to hop over the fence. And then it will serve a community that has a history of underinvestment, and that is good old District 2. That's District 2, right? It has been chosen after consideration of other crosswalk treatments, and then that's a question for Leisure Services and TPW: is this the most appropriate crosswalk treatment for this crosswalk? Those are the 6 criteria.
But I love that you've already got a traffic study done on that road, and we've got evidence of need from the community based on patterns of use. We've got linkage to an existing infrastructure. It's certainly a community that's been underinvested in historically, so I think it really ticks a lot of the boxes. And I never would have thought of that particular location, so I'm so glad you guys are thinking creatively and really identifying the spot of greatest need. So that's great.
I know, I'm kind of curious, from your reading of the grant, did it seem like you're only really allowed one location, or could you put in separate grant requests for different spots?
I think they're giving away one set of beacons to each applicant.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, generally granting funding agencies want to see one application, you know, for something like this, I would think per institution, they wouldn't necessarily want to see 5 different applications from Athens-Clarke County or Athens in Motion.
Right.
Just as a general rule, I don't think they say anything specific about it. That's just sort of a general pattern.
Oconee River Greenway Commission or Firefly Inc. and then Athens in Motion.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be?
I think if you tease out and make it clear that you have maybe separate networks, you've got the Firefly Trail Network and you've got the Oconee Rivers Greenway Network, and that they have different histories and different funding streams, different timelines. You know, you could tell the story that, you know, I think it's a decision we have to make that's relatively important, because you don't want to hurt both of them by having two, you know, or do you want the community's support behind one and kind of put all our eggs in that basket? I think the chance of getting both of them would be pretty low.
Yeah, I wouldn't submit more than one application to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, partly that's because of what Mark said. Is you want to show that everyone is coordinated in your locality, but also there are a bunch of questions about showing municipal support of the project, which sort of implies, and also they're distributing these among 10 or 12 different states. And I didn't see information about how many awards they were going to make, but I doubt that they would award. I think that because it's implied that geographic distribution would be a consideration in where they actually want to fund.
Yeah, and if you look at their last year's awards, which was a slightly different, you know, more diverse set of proposals, they were all over the place in there. I don't think there were two in the same state.
Okay. So I think we discussed a few other locations as well. One of them was up here on North Chase Street. Actually, Alex, did you have any other locations that you had proposed?
No, those were the highest priority, really.
Okay. Yeah, one was at the medical building crossing North Chase, but I don't know if this is representative of the kind of neighborhood.
Yeah,
graphic.
I mean, doctors aren't a community of need for sure.
But
I think they could immediately, they could kind of be very dismissive of it if they see that. They may say, well, those rich doctors should just put it in themselves, you know, if they're worried about their patients crossing the street.
Absolutely.
So I think we'd shoot ourselves in the foot there to some extent.
I kind of wanted to go ahead and jot down our points that we had discussed, just for future reference. If more of these come up, we'll have locations. So can we just run through, and I think I'm just doing name and status and priority. But what are some other locations?
Are you asking us in general to?
Yeah, I think I've gotten a few sent to me in email, and well,
there's the one, I don't know what's right there near Automatic on the original Greenway where it crosses by the bridge. I know they put in a crosswalk treatment. Like I said, I haven't ridden over there in a long time.
Yeah.
East Broad and Wilkerson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because a friend of mine who lives in that neighborhood really pushed for that and got some improved treatment there, but I don't think it's that kind of a treatment. It's you know, it's increasingly becoming a student populated area, so it's not as much of a community of need perhaps as it was.
Well, I mean,
can I ask,
I don't know.
with Stephen and Daniel, there is something happening there right now. In fact, the trail is closed, much to our surprise. So do you guys know what's happening right there? Right there on Weaver D side of the road?
Is it sewer infrastructure?
Is it the Pottery Street thing?
It seems like it's a ACC department doing it, not a subcontractor. But
I saw
all that brick is up right now.
Oh, I saw that there was like some houses that were being moved out of Pottery Street neighborhood on
that's
social
all
media.
a parking garage. Yeah.
But so I would assume it's a utility for that.
Okay, so you can see the Yeah, you can see the crosswalk here a little better. But they did color it.
So yeah, that's a good potential.
Anyway,
I think
just
it'd be
for
beneficial.
later.
Just from a leisure services side, I think that would be a good spot for one also. And yeah, crossing East Broad, not well. Yeah, okay, I see it.
Another place that I don't know that this would be the right, but you know, when you're riding the Firefly heading into town, it just sort of ends there, and it's a hard curve. There's no cutout. There's no crosswalk. It's a narrow little sidewalk. You basically have to get off your bike. There's no place to park. There's nothing. It just sort of ends, and I've always thought that could be improved. You know,
There
and
there is an
There's the
improvement project that's going on. So the Mark
yeah,
that is building a building in right here, and as
yeah.
part of that, now this doesn't necessarily get to what you're speaking of, but the plan right now is that this curb cut right here is going to be the bike access point to get bikes up onto the Firefly.
Mhm.
Alex, are there other improvements that are spec'd out in Todd's drawing?
Yeah, there's a fair number of improvements that happen here. Signage being probably the last, but most important, I would think. Because when you get to the end here, we really need to have our wayfinding signage that says, okay, this way to downtown, this way to the Greenway Trail.
But you need to be able to
That's
cross
really
that street there,
lacking.
right? Because right now I'm forced to go up
Well,
the little sidewalk, and unless you want to hop the curb and cross where there's no crosswalk.
no, we're not pushing people to cross right there. We're pushing, our signage would push people down the hill to the crosswalk that we previously discussed a second
Whoa,
ago
whoa, whoa!
at Willow.
So you tell people if I'm coming in on the Greenway heading into town
Mhm.
on the Firefly, you'd say turn right, go ride down a hill, use a crosswalk, and
Mhm.
then ride up a hill.
I'm saying go down the
For
hill if you're going to the
cyclists?
Greenway Trail.
But what if I want to go
Yeah.
to downtown? I'm going to downtown.
Yeah, so the improvements they're making on the, I'm pretty sure the sidewalk is widened all right there to push to allow you to go up the hill and make immediate left if you're coming from the Firefly Trail
Okay.
to go into downtown.
Okay, I think again you'd want to avoid pedestrian conflicts there. You know, if I'm
Mhm.
and good sight lines and curving radius and stuff like that. It's a little bit atypical to be on that side of the street on a sidewalk, and that's the expected
Mhm.
behavior because
Yeah.
it's not, you know.
So the street that goes through the Mark, that's a public street, right? That's a road. Yeah. So Mark, I've been cutting up through the Mark to get there, and right now, of course, one of the lanes is totally blocked off due to construction. So this left lane here is gone. So I'm not exactly
Yeah.
following rules, but there could be wayfinding there to encourage people to end up on this road, so they end up at a light
Yeah.
someday, and that's kind of beyond this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because there's that ramp, but then the ramp is pretty narrow, and you have to be, moderately skilled at least on a bike to do that. And a lot of folks aren't going to do that. Kids aren't going to do that. Less confident bikers aren't going to do that. You're going to do
Yeah.
that because you'll do anything, Lauren, and I love that. But
Oh yeah, no. I did it for a while. I'm kind of miffed that there's not a detour suggested for people.
yeah, but
Right
I
now.
think the bottom line is some way to get people from the end of the Firefly into downtown. Businesses would benefit from that. People who are using it for commuting, people who are using it for everybody would benefit from that. And I think, sure, going right, if you're going down to the Greenway Trail, great, that's fine. But, that's not the way a lot of people are going to want to turn. So thinking about that.
So are you saying that you would like to see up in the future more a kind of a mid-block crossing situation here?
Potentially, I mean, at least curb cuts, so I can just wait till the traffic's clear and then ride across to the bike lane and then, get into the
Yeah.
bike lane. Right
Yeah,
now, there's not
so
even a
that,
curb cut.
well, what Daniel was talking about, there's going to be an established where it's gravel right now, and it is that curb cut you can kind of see at that fire plug down there.
Uh-huh.
Utilizing that curb cut for bikes.
Yeah, I think
you
the
doing-
issue that we ran
Okay.
into with the curb cut in that location right here is the stormwater infrastructure would need to be relocated.
Oh, okay.
And so
Ah.
that's where they settled on, because there's the utility poles, there's a lot going on in this spot. I think there's even that high tension. Let me double check, make sure that's accurate.
Okay.
Because there's obviously all the utility lines here, but there's also the storm infrastructure right here. So the best thing we could do that was like affordable was to essentially make this a bike entrance exit. But
Okay.
you're right, coming off of the Firefly, you come up to that, and you
I've
want to
never
go
looked
uphill.
right. I've never even thought about looking right. I mean, I'd be willing to go if it's a few yards. That just looks like it's a few yards. I thought you meant all the way down the hill. But I
Yeah,
guess
no,
it would
it's
have to be signed and directional and, kind of help folks to know that.
Yeah. So it could be interesting to have kind of the bike lane turn lane almost to come out right here. And I guess it would just be a typical like stop sign intersection where the main road. And so I don't we could do RFB, but I don't know if it's
Yeah, I do see the stormwater drainage there, right in between that and that little plaza area. Yeah, right there. Yep. That makes sense. Yeah, so it just seemed like an awkward ending to a wonderful trail, and particularly as it gets bigger and better, hopefully we can think about something really nice there as a really nice gateway to the community and to welcome people into Athens, and that they want to spend their money here and go into town and have lunch and all those good things.
There's also a huge need for traffic calming on that road because of people plummeting down that hill from downtown, going 45, 50 miles an hour, which is why, I mean, the Greenway, it comes up every so often on the Greenway Commission, the inadequacy of crossing across East Broad by the river, the first one we looked at, and how, it's great that there's a crosswalk there, but people are still, still kind of, especially, people with kids and everything. But on the other hand, hopefully, eventually, we will have the Greenway stay on the east side of the river. So that will be less of a used.
I mean, one way to avoid having to do cuts, and one way you could, if you did a raised crosswalk that was kind of a speed table, that would slow traffic as well as provide a level, way for bikes to get across without having to mess with the existing curb. I don't know. I'm not the engineer guy, but that's it occurred that might address both things. And then you could set up a camera and see how far cars travel after they launch off the speed table at 50 miles an hour.
like
see how far they go.
record lines. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You could
Just
have
kidding.
a whole YouTube channel that was just people getting air on the East Broad speed table.
Can I ask some questions about RFB? I can't say it.
No, you can't.
May I? I know I literally
can't.
can't.
Of course you may.
Yeah. So I know our RFBs, there are certain rules about where we place them. They can't be within a certain amount of feet of a signalized intersection. Is that right? So if we're looking for places I guess I should keep that in mind. And then they're only for mid-block crossings versus at an existing signalized intersection. Okay.
I think is it 300 feet, Stephen or Daniel? Do you know?
Correct. It's 300, and yes, at mid-block intersections or mid-block crosswalks. Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, I think we all agree this can be better, and it will be getting better. And I'm really glad to hear that people are thinking about it and working on it.
So that first East Broad crossing doesn't qualify then, because that's within 300 feet of the East Broad. Whatever it is, East Broad, First Street, MLK intersection.
How many feet is that, Daniel? Can you do that real quick?
Yeah.
It's less than a football field.
Yeah, I have no context what 300 feet is.
Sure.
Football field.
Yeah. It's no football field, that's for
It's
sure.
312 feet from that intersection.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
So
really? From the one on the left-hand side?
yeah.
From the middle of the intersection. Is it the middle or the beginning?
I think this is what I'm
not sure.
saying. Yeah, I mean, like we're using artificial street center lines, and so if I were deciding the phrasing there, that would be the center lines that I use. So
Well, in terms of the grant, I don't think you want to have to say No, it's fine. This is 312 feet from an intersection.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The other
I think we want it to be a
important
clear.
part- So the other important part in that grant is that it needs to be the most appropriate use for that crossing, and then have a letter from traffic engineering stating as such. So I think that's going to be where we also need to make sure that we're thinking about that as we look at these crossing locations.
Do you think that the one we discussed first on, I guess, Old Oak Street would meet those criteria?
Yeah, Alex, did it come with a recommendation from Tim within the traffic study?
It did. There's some intricacies because it's not gonna be a perpendicular crossing. So yes, but conversations, I guess is the best way to say that.
Okay. So is there, I mean, some consensus that that's going to be our preferred location for this grant application? The Little Oak Street?
What is the usage like there now? In terms of
What's
the
the
traffic
usage?
study? How many people are using?
The vehicular traffic or the people actually coming on and off of the trail?
Both, I guess. Whatever we know.
So I don't know how many people come off and on that trail right there, just because we don't have a counter there, and I only assume it's going to get to be possibly more once the trail goes further out of town. Let me see if I can pull up that.
So Alex, when they did a traffic study, they just did vehicular traffic. We didn't do a ped count with trail cams. Okay.
But you did say it supported the need for the beacon, right?
It would have to meet a specific vehicular traffic count, or it would meet a specific, peak usage. I think is like more than 10 pedestrians in a peak hour per day would qualify no matter what. So, and sorry not to derail, but one thing to keep in mind, if y'all are wanting some pre and post data, we can set up cameras before we put this in and after for both vehicular and pedestrian usage.
Okay. And I think you'd probably get more usage where the Firefly crosses, I'm blocking on the street name again now, the little dead end, that we discussed.
Inglewood. Florence Street.
Inglewood, actually. I was actually where the Firefly crosses Inglewood near that chicken place. I mean, that has definitely tons of pedestrian and bike traffic all day long. I don't know the vehicular count there.
Yeah.
And whereas I think there's probably more vehicular traffic, there might be, although pretty much anybody who's on Inglewood is going to go down Little Oak. Most of them are, if they are, they're going to go down Little Oak. So probably the vehicular traffic is fairly similar between Inglewood and Little Oak. But the pedestrian traffic is much greater at Inglewood where the Greenway crosses, where the Firefly crosses.
Yeah, so some other suggestions I have are maybe for future RRFB grants is I'm wondering about Peter Street. I think people do kind of fly down this road. And particularly, I'm thinking about the Virginia Walker Park entrance. Now that's, I don't know if that's appropriate in terms of what's allowed, because there's also the loop on and off ramp there. And it's kind of, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so we've floated that idea, Lauren,
Sure.
Of that right there, and it since there's that four-way stop that's been newly added just
Okay.
up from the park,
Sure.
that 300 feet thing kind of killed a lot of what was going on there.
Okay.
Because we even
That's good
asked
to
about,
know.
that's where I found out about all the caveats of, there's already an intersection there at Carver and Peter, and
Okay.
I got to learn all the, you can't add these at a stop sign, you can't add these within all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Okay.
That aerial's older. That aerial predates that.
Yeah.
There's a 4-way stop at Peter at Carver.
Okay.
And that
I can
4-way
see
stop
it
now
on,
has crosswalks, right? Yeah, that was we
Yes.
identified that in one of our roadway safety audits last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Another
looks
sort
good.
of awkward, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Another sort of awkward transition is at the beginning of the Trail Creek Trail on Vine Street. Again, it sort of dumps you there, and then you have very high-speed traffic. People fly down there, and that's a tricky crossing. I generally don't like to stop, and that's one where I do stop just because I still value my life. And that one, it's there's just not a great transition there on Vine.
Well, it's also especially strange because you have this curb cut for cyclists to come right out
Yeah.
into the road, but there's also this which takes you over to the side to the crosswalk. So the driver might be looking at the crosswalk and not notice someone's coming up right here.
Yeah. Yeah, and frankly, I'd never taken in. I don't think I noticed that there was a crosswalk there because your focus is in front of you, and it's sort of the natural direction to go there. But
That one might not just be add RFBs. I agree with Daniel. It is the trail itself splashes you away from the crosswalk, and so it's almost like that entire intersection needs to be re-evaluated.
Yes, Stephen. The hell. That's my only. I mean, I used to negotiate that all the time with multiple dogs pulling me in different directions.
Oh, and another one that I noticed, which might not be qualifying necessarily, but Thomas and Mitchell on campus. So it's right here. Where Spring Street comes in.
Oh yeah, by the parking deck.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so because like the day after I was looking at this, I was like driving from point A in Athens to point B, and I was texting. I think I was texting you, Stephen, and I was just like, "Hey, what about this spot or this spot or this spot?"
Yeah, no, that definitely gets a fair amount of pedestrian traffic crossing because people park in that huge open lot on the left side of that image, and they cross, and then they walk up the stairs to get in there right in central main campus. So that
Yeah.
I see people standing there all the time waiting to, kind of duck out into traffic. So I think the university should definitely pay for one there.
Yeah, I do too.
There's that one,
Yeah.
and there's another one just up the road, also at the spill out from the vehicular spill out from the parking garage.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is
That's
my
actually the one
office is
I
at
was
Memorial
thinking of.
Park. Yeah. So going from my office to like the nature center of the park, I drive this all the time, and there's a ton of people that use that.
That's the one I was thinking of actually, because it goes directly onto those stairs. Now that I wonder if as we think about that, the university just bought that rail line, I guess, and I don't know if in long term they're planning to put in pedestrian, bike, multi-use path kind of facility, but that could certainly change things there.
So we can put these on state routes. Yes?
Thinking about millage.
We have to get a
How did you know?
we do have to get a
There's two
permit
state
from
routes.
GDOT.
We have to
we've
what?
had
Okay.
we've had limited success getting permits from GDOT on these. The last one, I think we had millage was a tough one. I think
Okay.
at Millage Terrace at Millage was where we'd asked for one, and now I can't remember if we got approval for that or I think it got held up. So it's been hit or miss with them.
Okay, yeah. The area I'm thinking about, which might be a little bit close to the to traffic lights, is that grocery store, that shopping center that has Fuchs Food in it. And then there's just that huge stretch of millage from East Campus Road to where the loop pulls out. And it's only a 2-lane road. It's not very big, but it's difficult to cross. And I know that somebody has died in a scooter accident there within like the past 10 years or something like that. So it would be South Millage between Woodland Hills and the loop.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
part of that is also trying to encourage folks to go to Millage Extension rather than ride down Millage. You know, and that's not a big distance to go, you know, up East Campus to Millage Extension and then down on the road/Greenway to get to that Macon Highway intersection. But signing that, people don't know about it, so they don't think to use it. I certainly wouldn't have if I didn't know about the Millage Extension. People don't know that that goes all the way through. So again, that's a signing, you know, information kind
Mhm.
of education issue.
Yeah, but what happens when you live at the apartments that are directly across, you're so close to the shopping center and
Yeah.
you can't get over there. It seems like you would, but everything just kind of opens up there and it becomes very complicated and tricky
Mhm.
to cross.
No, you're absolutely right. Like in that
Yeah.
where the bus stop is by the courtyard on South Apartments or someplace up
Yes.
there, because
Yeah.
it's by a bus stop. That
Mm-hmm.
might be an additional reason to do something there.
Is this
Yeah.
what you're talking?
Yes.
Yep.
This vicinity, it really anywhere between here and Woodland
Of
Hills.
course, then it doesn't have a sidewalk on that side of the street to accept pedestrians, I don't think.
Yeah.
I know there's some other places I can
There's a
think
little
of,
bit
but
of
there's
a
not
gap
really
right there.
any infrastructure there,
Yeah.
period, right now.
Yeah.
So
No, I think that's a great idea, Lauren. I like that. That's an area that needs some love.
we're talking South Millage. Trying to see. It's being problematic. Okay, below here. There we go. I guess it would be probably on that roadway crossing, or would it be more up here?
A little more north, where that bus stop is actually is a good starting place. And that may not be 300 feet.
I need to. Okay, so it's kind of
Yeah.
okay.
Right where it says Plaza 189 or something like that.
Halfway. Okay.
It'd be better. You'd actually have to go down there.
Oops. Wrong.
Look.
Yeah, and Daniel, thank you for marking these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's makes it a lot easier for me to track it too. Just did I miss another one where we talked about millage up in this area? And I guess, I mean, at this point, we've got several, but we're really just doing the one for the one grant. So
Mm-hmm.
if y'all come up with other ones, I'll dig through my email and I can basically have this data layer as kind of like a tracking future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you get on to the next point on the agenda.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little behind, and this has been a great discussion, though, and I think generated some good data. And so I guess moving forward, I'm still not totally clear which of the two projects we've discussed, either the one that actually crosses that helps you cross the Firefly, or the one that helps you access the Firefly. I mean, I guess I'm still not quite clear which one we're gonna go for.
So the one thing I will say, I know that this grant, just like CDBG, asked about public comment, public input. We have gotten emails and calls about the Little Oak access. We have not gotten emails or calls of concern crossing Inglewood. So I don't know if we could even say that there's public need for them to cross Inglewood. I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah. Okay. No, so that's good to know. So are we going to prioritize the Little Oak Street access? Anybody object to that? Anybody feel strongly about other ones, or?
I think the Little Oak one is strong. I mean, I can imagine writing. I have an answer to every question.
Yeah, you can tell a good story with the community, with the existing trail, with, yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good. And there may be other ways to.
Some of the other ones
I
you're
can
talking
forward
about.
you guys the CDBG application that already has some narrative written to Jake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the Inglewood crossing, I mean, it could benefit from other kinds of treatments, maybe thermoplastic or something to indicate that there's a bike crossing, or that sort of dashed line thermo paint that indicates conflict. I don't know what you're allowed to do or what the standard would be, but something to make it super obvious to cars who aren't really thinking about that.
One thing
not necessarily
we've
beacon.
shop talked. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. We've shop talked a little bit about Firefly specifically, kind of highlighting its crosswalks in a different way. We've never executed anything, but that's definitely been a conversation. Marketing, but also to, bring more attention to them. So,
yeah, there's some interesting things you could do artistically, maybe even within some of those crosswalks to highlight that, hey, you're on the Firefly now. So that'd be cool. Great. Let me pull up see if I can find the agenda and all these documents.
I've got agreement commission meeting at 4. I appreciate you guys letting me crash this. But
okay. Thanks,
great
Alex.
talking with you guys.
Great information. Yeah, thank you very much.
See you soon.
Okay, so it looks like we have a plan going forward. Who's going to, in terms of the document, it's an online document, so we probably need to kind of write it and work on it and agree on it offline, and then, copy and paste it into that document.
Yeah, so I've created a template for our application, and I can share it on our Google Drive.
Of course you have. I knew you would. I didn't even have to offer to do it because I knew you'd do it. Thanks, Jake. That's great. Terrific.
It's so easy compared to the $26 million EIC proposal I'm trying to get finished right now. Seems idyllic.
Hey, the data discussion, I think Daniel or Stephen, I think Daniel, you wanted to update us a little bit on that?
Yeah, so let me, we don't have connectivity to our servers, so I think I might be able to have access to some of it. Yeah. We might have to just wait because so something happened with IT, and we lost our servers basically. And we're waiting for they're in the middle of trying to regain that access, but the data set that I have kind of drafted out is on that server.
Okay, we'll pay the ransom, okay?
Exactly. I mean, in general, ultimately, I think what I wanted to explore with it and talk about was to have a comprehensive bike ped network data set, which would just be essentially street centerline data with attributes of what is proposed and existing, and progress of construction, that kind of stuff, for all of that, so that you could kind of map out different things. And then I was going to also bring in some of those layers from the Athens in Motion plan, such as the equity score, because ultimately, especially if we're going to, Stephen, the tool design group built our scoring criteria kind of analysis tool. Isn't that right?
Yep.
And I haven't taken a look at that. Is that finished, like fully built out and ready to use, or are they waiting for that?
It's pretty close. They're also trying to tie in a tool they're trying to do a few things for us. First, to be able to create the prioritization tool so that we can do those annual updates to the priority list. But then also they're trying to make a story map that goes with it that kind of would be public facing to show people how you get those scores and where each street is at right now. So I think they've completed like 99% of that first task, and they're working on task 2 right now.
Okay. Because with that, I think a thing to consider is that we'll need to have like the approved data sets that we're using to score these criteria. And so some of that can be embedded within the bike ped network stuff, but I want to make sure that everything we've got is kind of feeding into that. So there's kind of that central network for both bike and ped. And then there's also the existing bike network and existing ped network. And so the ped network consists of curb ramps, sidewalk center lines, and essentially you could hypothetically take that network data set and run a routing algorithm through it. So you could say, I want to find the safest route from point A to point B. And as long as you have those like route scores in the data set, you could calculate out the safest route there. The bike center lane data is similar, but it's not, it's built, but it hasn't really had data put into it yet. So we have a few center lanes of bikes in there, but I plan on kind of updating that and getting more accurate information in. And so, and that particular data set would also show everywhere we had sharrows, and even in like neighborhood roads, it would have basically a center line for all neighborhood roads that it's safe to just ride a bike on, those kind of safest scoring roads that you don't actually, like on my street, I don't need bike lanes, but I want to include that as part of the bike network because we have hit, like, we are at the level we need to be on this street. And that way it really helps identify the metrics and the measurables for,
Now, that sounds great. Would that include the width of streets? Is that also part of could it be linked to that? So that you could say for a given street, okay, that's 40 feet wide, it can support this kind of infrastructure. That's 55 feet wide, it can support this.
I would like to. What do you think, Steven?
Sure, and I think we have actual roadway widths on most roads, and some are estimated. So I'll have to double check to make sure that's a feasible field. But yeah, we should have that field in there.
Great, cool.
So yeah, so I'm working on that. It'll be a little bit longer. I'm kind of using it for a few different projects right now. So it's just kind of my working data set. And then once it gets further along, I'm going to be talking with RGIS Tech and Public Works to get it hosted. But
great, good. I see that Jake has to go to the meeting. Sounds like Daniel, do you have to go to that too?
Yeah, I can go a little late, but
okay.
Yeah.
I move that we adjourn the session. Teresa, anyone want to second it? Okay, I think we got seconded. Thanks, everybody. I will put together a little summary of what we discussed and send that around. And I look forward to seeing that data set, Daniel. Once you get that done, that sounds like it'll be really helpful for planning and going forward and coordinating things. So good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, cool.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, cheers.
Bye, all.